right, so I just made it back from the Shepaug in the Kaboat, and this is a very difficult river because it's very shallow. It's almost too shallow to canoe, but we had a bunch of rain over the last couple days, so I figured I was going to try to run it. I started at Hodge Park, and my goal was to try to make it to Steep Rock, and I really doubted that the boat would be able to make it because there's some spots that are just so shallow, and it's a very rocky river. There's big rocks, and I'm happy to say that I actually made it farther than I thought. So I made it to Steep Rock, which is about 7 miles from Hodge Park, and then I ran another 2.5 miles north past Washington Depot, pretty far up, and then I got to a really shallow section, and the boat I centered, and I may have been able to drag it and get farther, but I was very happy to have just made it that far, and I didn't want to damage the boat, so I decided that that would be a good turnaround point. This type of boating requires really intense focus and split-second reaction times. Easily destroy the boat if you hit something, because you're doing about probably about 16 miles an hour going upstream and probably about 22 or 23 miles an hour going downstream, and you're basically slaloming through a boulder field where if you hit one rock you could damage the outboard or puncture the boat, but neither of those things happened. Alright, so the Kaboat is doing amazing with the new Suzuki. This is really like an adrenaline pumping river because there's almost no flat water. Going downstream is much more difficult than going upstream. So I'm just taking a quick break here at Steep Rock Park, and I'll keep pushing downriver. It does require, some skill to operate, but I don't know of any other vessel that can fit in the back of a pickup truck and take you 10 miles up a river and 10 miles back down in less than 2 hours, and then be easily loaded back into the pickup by one person and driven home. So I've made some improvements to this boat. So the Suzuki outboard is an absolute game changer. I will be sticking with this motor and selling the 2-strokes. It just sipped fuel. So another thing I added is some rollers in the bed of the truck to help get the boat more easily into the bed. So an absolute game changer is the Jet Wolf intake. So this is a polyurethane intake. If I had the original aluminum intake on this trip, it probably would have shattered. When you slam rocks, the outboard will completely come out of the water, and having that polyurethane intake helps to absorb some of that impact. You can buy these as a 9.9 or 15 horsepower and change the ECU and a few other small things and make them 20 horsepower. So I really think that these are one of the lightest jet boats out there. It can easily run Class 2 rapids. It's manageable with one person to load into the back of a pickup truck. And the best thing is, with the outboard, you can easily raise the outboard to remove debris that gets caught in the grate. So if the grate picks up all sorts of leaves or grass or pebbles, you just lift up the outboard, clear the grate while you're on the water, put it back down, and you're good to go. Because even one small pebble or leaf stuck in the grate will create a loss of thrust. So I'm extremely happy with this boat. This is something that search and rescue should definitely have. One person can easily roll it on the launch wheels. It weighs about 230 pounds without gas, which is really light. Only needs about a foot of water to get on plane, and then once you're on plane, 6 inches is really all you need. And like I said, occasionally less water, like 3 inches, no problem, and an inch of water, it'll skim over. One thing I did try to do is, on the way back down, just kind of drift down and use the motor for steering so that I could enjoy the ride. That was kind of nice. But most of the time, I would see riffles up ahead as I'm going down, and I would just pin the throttle, and it would just jump up on plane, and almost like a hovercraft, just barely touch the crest of the riffles, and just glide back down. So as much as I love this boat, it certainly is like a white knuckle ride, and probably the best way to illustrate that is this is blood, because I was gripping this rope so tightly that I actually wore through the skin on my finger, and there's blood here and wherever I was really grabbing onto this thing as I was flying up these rapids. So the boat is extremely capable. The one limitation is the driver and just how much they're willing to push the boat, but I am getting a little bit more used to it.